Alright, so I finished installing all the sound deadening that I want to. So as promised, I'm going to show you the different types of sound deadening that I used, where I put them, and why. Starting at the front of the car, I'll show you the transmission tunnel and the roof, because I decided to use the same stuff for the both of those, and that is Thermotech Coolit. Simply because they are more geared towards, thermal insulation, right, as the name sort of suggests. So the exhaust runs right in between your right foot and the transmission, and that area does get pretty darn warm, especially when you're racing it real hard or driving the car long distance, etc. The transmission itself also brings out a lot of heat, so having it on both sides is going to be really nice to have. Now, as I mentioned, I also used it for the roof. Now, I already put it back together, but you can already kind of imagine how it looks like underneath. So on these 280ZXs, whether or not you have a T-top car or not, you're going to have a piece of structure that goes from the top of the windshield where the mirror is all the way back until it stops at the rear of the roof where the hatch meets. And luckily, Nissan decided to make that removable. So it's just 2 screws in the back, 2 screws in the front, whole thing comes down, and you can lay one whole big sheet of whatever you want right across the top, and it makes a real big difference for sure. I mean, noise alone, that's really nice compared to kind of how it used to sound. Now, it's like I said, I mainly chose it for the thermal properties, and it's made a real big difference there as well. You park this thing out in the sunlight, yeah, it's gonna get warm, but not nearly as much as what it used to, for sure. You put your hand up there, whatever, and it's just a lot nicer. Now, for the whole floor, I decided to use Killmat. Now, it's the alternative sort of, Dollar General version of what you might know as Dynamat. Dynamat is for sure better, right? You should go with that. But I decided to use Killmat because it's like half the cost, and all the people that I've talked to said it's like, 80% as good, right? So, I don't know, I'll try it. Why not? So I decided to use it all across the floor, midsection, trunk area. More on those in a bit. And I also decided to use them for the doors as well. This is a really big area for wind noise, especially this outer skin. So you put that on the skin there, on the inside, of course, and then I also decided to put a little bit more on the sort of structure that goes inside the door there, where the window regulator and handle bolts up to and everything. You don't have to do that. It's completely unnecessary to put it there, but I decided to anyways, just because I had the extra, I suppose. I don't know. Moving on to the midsection, this is where your cubby, the 2 storage cubbies are behind the seats, and also your speakers are located. So let me show you this area. So I decided to cover the inside and the outside, and how I was able to cover the inside was by taking this whole piece off, right? This whole section, this whole structure comes out. It's just held in by screws around the perimeter. So, like that one, for example, right? So you take the whole thing out, and you can get all on the inside. Now, my radio doesn't work, so I didn't really need to do this again, but I decided to anyways, because in the future I will make a stereo that works. So having any kind of resonance in this piece is going to be bad for sound quality, right? You talk to any kind of, acoustic engineer or radio enthusiast, whatever, they're going to tell you that having a box that kind of resonates is not going to be good for sound. So controlling this is going to be really nice, and I'm glad I did this, because this was just the crappiest, tiniest piece of sheet metal you can imagine, right? You take this thing out, all kinds of racket. It was super loud, super annoying. You put the sound deadening on, it really, really quiets it down, dampens the noise, everything. It's really nice to have. Future me will thank me a lot, I'm sure. Another really big source of noise is these wheel arches. I'm sure if you have the same car and you drive on a gravel road or whatever, you can hear every little piece of gravel that hits on the inside of this from when it comes off from the tire. So having really anything here is going to be a big help. Now, these cars already did come with sound deadening glued to this from the factory, but I decided to scrape it all off and replace with my own anyways because, you know, you can imagine why. It's 40 years old. It's really not nearly as good, and this just looks nicer, honestly, right? I mean, it's just gonna be better. So I did that for both sides of the course, all around, and also did the inside of that, that top there. Now on the insides of the quarter panels, I decided to stuff them full, and I mean full, of the shredded fabric insulation. That's gonna be a big help, right? So you take these seatbelts out and you can get in there real far, real nice and easy on both sides of the course, and go all the way across, and then you can get it from the other side, from the back side there. That's gonna make a big difference for sure, right? Anytime you have a real big open cavity like that, that's where you're gonna want to use this type of insulation, or you can also use fiberglass insulation. You can do that as well. Fiberglass is just kind of a handle, kind of a hassle. Excuse me, but it'll work just as fine. Finishing off with the trunk, I'll show you what I did here. So the fuel tank is right underneath this, of course, and the fuel pump is right next to it, and it's actually bolted to the car. And that stupid little thing is loud, right? So any kind of noise dampening that you can have back here is paramount, right? It's going to be really nice. It's night and day, and I've sure noticed it already, just kind of moving the car back and forth. So any kind of noise dampening that you can have here, it's going to be great. Now, the quarter panels, like I said, I was kind of finishing off there. It's all stuffed in there, and also did this back panel as well. I didn't need to do this, but I decided to anyways. The only area that you should try and avoid filling 100% is this one little area here, because if you have the stock interior like I do, you're going to have a little storage cubby here. So you need to make room for the storage cubby, of course, so that you can stuff it all in there. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting yourself getting that piece in there. So that's the only area where you want to kind of avoid stuffing full. But other than that, yeah, as much as you can, right? Even these top areas. Any kind of big cavity, fill it. For these wheel arch trim pieces, I know what you really call them, these interior pieces, I decided to stuff the back of them full of this multi-purpose insulation, right? You just spray glue and cover it all across. That's going to be real nice to have, because again, that's going to be a nice big open cavity for noise to kind of resonate through. So that's going to be a big help. This one too, of course. Another thing that I'm doing while I'm in here with having the carpet all out is because I want to put new carpet in. I'm putting a carpet kit in it. Now, the whole time that I've been doing this, all this process took me about a week. So, and every day that I was doing this, I had my carpet out of the box, and I put it out in the parking lot where it gets baked in the sunlight. Now, of course, the sun has already moved. It's getting kind of late now. But, all day that's been sitting out there in the parking lot, and it's been cooking, and it's been, sun's been doing its magic on getting rid of those folds. And right, if you can imagine, though, that carpet has been sitting in a box, probably on a shelf for many years, right, before I got it. So undoing those folds is going to be a big nightmare. So any kind of heat you can apply to it is going to be nice. And so I decided to just use sunlight because it's free. But that's not going to be enough, though. I'll have to go back and go with a steamer or maybe an iron or something. I don't really know. I'll have to figure that out later. But anything you can do to apply heat and kind of stretch a little bit is going to make it really nice and pliable, so that you can get it in the car a lot easier. You're not left with folds. So, but that's about it. Here's the bag that I used for that shredded fabric stuff. There's the kill mat, whatever. Yeah, overall, I think it looks pretty good, and I'm already noticing a really big difference in how everything sounds, and it's not even back together yet. I'm excited, for sure.